It's safe to say at this point that I am somebody that prefers to watch horror movies that are less popular and less hyped. Nothing against the big releases, because I get just as excited as the next person when I find out there's another Saw movie coming out, but me personally likes to find hidden gems and movies that are less watched so I can give my attention to those movies instead. I even did a list recently here on my channel talking about 8 horror movies that I personally think deserve more attention than they actually get. And this movie list is kind of similar, but for a different reason. I personally think that the reason these movies don't get the attention they deserve is because nobody has actually heard of them in the first place. If you're new here, I go by Hordes and I talk about all things horror here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, so if that sounds like something you would be interested in, maybe even stick around and join the Horde. And if you also think there are any movies that you would like to recommend that fall under this category of movies that nobody has actually heard of that you want to recommend, please feel free to drop them in my comment section down below and I will go and check them out, because I do it with every single horror movie that I get recommended. So without further ado, onto the list. Vampire Clay from 2017 is a Japanese horror drama. When Kiori starts sculpting using mystery clay found in a bag buried outside, bizarre events start occurring. At first, other students' projects start getting destroyed, but eventually her rival classmates start to go missing. Vampire Clay is quirky as hell, and I can honestly say that I have never seen anything remotely similar to this movie. It is about a bag of clay that is infused with the blood of an artist that then consumes students and contorts them in the same kind of way that you would morph clay into shapes. Seriously, that is the concept of this movie. And the real selling point for this one is the visual effects, both digital and practical, because the things that they have done with these students are something else entirely, because what you can do with clay, this movie says, how about we do this with flesh and bone as well? This is a slightly different take on a possession movie meets a body horror movie, and we are talking a literal version of putting blood, sweat and tears into your work. And now, while the story might not be the strongest in this movie, the visual effects are the selling point in this, and they are done really well considering how low a budget this movie is.
Careful, that's my sculpture.
You can expect creative rivalries, clay that absorbs humans entirely, demonic little clay dolls, and some really fun visual and practical effects. Number 2. Make Me Up from 2018 is a satire horror comedy. Siri wakes up to find herself trapped in a candy-coated dream house. Despite the bright decor, the place is far from benign, and she and fellow inmates are encouraged to compete for survival in a series of demeaning tasks. Make Me Up is a candy-coated pastel nightmare with the voice of Kenneth Clark, and the whole point of this movie is it addresses the often contradictory standards that women are often held to within the beauty industry and on social media, and how there are often these desperate attempts to grow an audience and maintain an audience, and how people are willing to do things that they wouldn't normally be prepared to do when they think that there is something on the line. I remember this one actually airing in the UK back in 2018 on BBC Three, but unfortunately it is no longer available on BBC iPlayer, but I managed to watch this thanks to the help of a VPN, because you can actually rent this one within the US. Now, the reason that this one stayed with me for so long is because of that wonderfully pastel visual colour scheme. Now, it is very rare to find a horror movie that steers in this direction and goes full on like kawaii pastel fluffy girly, and it is such a contrast to the story that is being told within this movie. The undertones are really sinister in this movie, and you are taking a group of women and asking them to compete in a Big Brother style house setup where you don't want to be the winner and you don't want to be the loser, and you are asking the general public for likes and attention. Director and writer Rachel McLean has actually done a bunch of other projects, but I cannot find them streaming anywhere, and if anybody knows where I can watch any of them, please let me know, because I am prepared to give her all of the money, because there is something about her visual aesthetic that I just love, and I think that more people need to know about her as a writer and a director.
Shut up and take my money!
You can expect creepy cute eyeball cameras, smiley faced ham, discussions on beauty standards, and a competition that you do not want to win. Number 3. Pollen from 2023 is a psychological horror. After a senior co-worker assaults a bright-eyed young woman, her dream job becomes a living nightmare as she tries to keep her career together while being tormented at home, at work, and in her dreams by a mysterious tree monster. Pollen is one of those 2023 releases that flew completely under the radar for most people, and I only discovered it when I was looking at Google Images for another movie that had just come out, and that's how I found The Tree Man. Pollen is about Hera, who never recovers from being SA'd by a co-worker and is carrying around this trauma without any way of knowing how to process it. Now, this ends up with the creation of the Tree Man. Now, the relationship between Hera and Tree Man is very similar to the relationship between James and Pyramid Head in Silent Hill 2. If you know anything about Silent Hill 2, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. One simply cannot exist without the other. Tree Man happens to be a manifestation of Hera's emotions and thoughts and feelings and trauma, and while she continues to not address any of this and get the help that she so clearly needs, Tree Man is forever going to be a presence in her life. Now, I will say with this one, a lot of people, depending on your own personal backstory and experiences, may find this one triggering, so I would suggest checking for this one on Does the Dog Die First? You can expect a man made of trees, the worst office working space and co-workers that I have ever come across, and a woman struggling to determine what is real and what is fake as she struggles to process her own trauma. Number 4. Gothic Lolita Battle Bear from 2014 is a Japanese action horror comedy. Yumiko and her teddy bear, who is possessed by the spirit of a dead samurai, transform into a sexy pink superhero to battle an army of zombies controlled by a creepy old man who fuses with his own black teddy bear. I'm going to refer to this one by its English name because I will accidentally butcher the Japanese pronunciation of this one. If you like weird, off-the-wall Japanese horror comedy movies, then this one is for you. And I love this wild movie, and when I say that this is a wild movie, I mean like you are gonna love or hate this movie. We're talking a sweet Lolita who merges with a samurai-infused teddy bear who has a gas problem. There is laser booby nippers at one point, there's adult babies, there's zombies that dance to heavy metal. There is so much going on within this movie, and I remember the first time watching this and laughing my head off the entire time. It is such a wild, wild movie. One of the characters in this is even a trans-coded boy, and nobody ever questions this. They just accept you are a boy, and I love that. And possibly the most wild and crazy thing about this entire movie is the supervillain in it is simply called Charlie, the most normal name that you have ever heard of. Charlie, Charlie, Charlie! You can expect to ask yourself what is happening every few minutes, an electric guitar solo, dancing zombies, and 2 teddy bears that merge with their humans to become kaiju. Number 5. Flight of the Living Dead from 2007 is a zombie horror. On a routine red-eye flight from Los Angeles to Paris, a group of scientists has smuggled aboard a container holding a scientist infected with a deadly genetic engineered virus. After slight turbulence, the freezer breaks down and she awakens, turning into a zombie and infecting all on board. Flight of the Living Dead is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a zombie movie set on a plane from the mid-2000s. So, as you can guess, this movie is full cheese, predictable plot, lots of typical tropes for a zombie movie, as well as teen comedy movies, all mixed together with a 2000s pop-punk soundtrack, which is an absolute selling point for me personally. There is even a fight montage in this movie. Like, they threw everything into this movie, and I mean everything. Like, I laughed a lot when watching this movie just because of how ridiculous this is. Like, Somebody at one point is denied use of their nail clippers on a plane, but somebody else is allowed a full set of golf clubs. That is how wild this movie gets at times. Now, it's not great, but if you want something that you can throw on in the background while eating pizza and talking with your friends, then Flight of the Living Dead is a great shout. You can expect the worst last day at a job, a man crawling around in the walls of an aeroplane, guns on an aeroplane, and a zombie who is stuck in his seat trying his hardest to get out of his seatbelt. Number 6. Anonymous Animals from 2020 is a fantasy horror. Animals are now the dominant species, leaving humankind to bend to their will. In a remote corner of the countryside, a group of humans suddenly find themselves hunted as prey. Anonymous Animals is a visual heavy movie because there isn't actually a single line of dialogue within it. Now, the humans are still able to communicate with their animal hybrid superiors, but the entire plot of this movie is about humans being sort of rounded up and put into the human version of factory farms. So yes, this movie is a discussion on animal welfare and animal cruelty within the food industry. Its stylistic choices are certainly what make this one stand out. Anything outside is bleak and devoid of colour, and everything inside is gritty and grimy and industrial looking. Now, this one isn't going to be for everybody, but if you are somebody that enjoys a style over substance movie sometimes, then this one might be for you. Plus, it is only 1 hour and 4 minutes, so it is certainly not the longest movie on this list. Quick. You can expect human cattle farming, a dog with a pet human, and a bull who is a brute with a cattle prod. Number 7. Raz from 2013 is an action horror. Sabrina, along with 49 other women, is abducted by a diabolical couple who forces them to fight one-on-one in a King of the Ring style tournament to entertain a group of rich people while holding someone each woman values as the prize for the winner. The one big selling point for Raz is its fight sequences because they are gory, they are violent, and we are dealing with 50 women who want to win this competition and will fight tooth and nail to make sure that they come out victorious to win back their loved one. Now, Zoe Bell, who plays our lead Sabrina, while most people may not be aware of her as an actor, I can guarantee that you have seen her somewhere else because she's most known for being a stunt woman. She was Uma Thurman's stunt double in the Kill Bill franchise, and she was Lucy Lawless's stunt double in Xena Warrior Princess. So we are talking about a seasoned stunt woman who choreographs fight sequences for a living, doing a movie about a fight club.
You do not talk about Fight Club.
You can expect an underground fight club, 50 participants who are not afraid to throw a punch or a knee, and a diabolical couple who deserve absolutely everything that is coming to them. Number 8. American Fable from 2016 is a fantasy horror mystery. When 11-year-old Gitty discovers her beloved father is hiding a wealthy man who can grant wishes in the family's silo in order to save their struggling farm, she is forced to choose between saving the man's life or protecting her family from the consequences of their actions. American Fable is certainly more of a magical realism fantasy than a horror, but there are still horror elements in it. Now, this is a great option for people who don't necessarily like horror, or for somebody that just doesn't like gore in horror movies, because this movie is gore-free. Set in 1980s Midwest America, a time when lots of farmers were actually losing their land due to financial struggles, and this land was being bought up by financial investors. This is actually the starting point for American Fable. Now, with the name American Fable, as you can guess, there is a moral to this story, and there are themes of fables and folklore woven in throughout the entire plot. It does remind me of a more toned down, mild version of the movie Tideland from 2005, because you are dealing with an innocent but imaginative child who is surrounded by adults who are fueled by their own financial gains and motives. Money. You can expect magical realism, a friendship formed in a grain silo, and a parallel to the fable of the Lion and the Mouse. So there you have it, the 8 horror movies that I think you have probably never heard of. If you have heard of any of them though, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are on them down in the comments section down below, along with any movie recommendations that you might have. If you would like to know every single horror movie that I watch, you can also find me over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror, or maybe even stick around and join the Horde here on YouTube. I will be back on Friday with another solo movie review, and this time I'm continuing on with the second movie in a series that I watched the first one of when I did a second chance rewatch not too long ago. So until next time, bye.